Vaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, Lord Rishabdev's teachings, which is chapter 5, and we're on text number 24. Is that right? Yeah. Text 24. Okay, I'll just read the verse. Drita tano ushati me purani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram shamodama satyamanugrahascha tapastitikshānubhavascha yatra. Oh, okay. Drita tanu ushati me purani. Drita tano ushati me purani yeneha sattvam paramam pavitram yeneha sattvam paramam pavitram shamo dhamma satyam anugrahas cha Samo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavas cha yatra tapas titikshānubhavas cha yatra durita tanu ushati me purani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram Shamo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavascha yatra. Drita tanu ushati me parani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram Shamo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavascha yatra. Drita tanu ushati me purani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram Shamo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavascha yatra. Durita tanu ushati me purani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram Shamo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavascha yatra. Ladies. Drita tanu ushati me purani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram Shamo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavascha yatra. Drita tanu ushati me purani yene hasatvam paramam pavitram Samo dhamma satyam anugrahascha tapas titikshānubhavascha yatra. Drita, maintained by transcendental education. Tanu, body. Ushati, free from material contamination. Me, I. Purani, eternal. Yena, by whom? Iha, in this material world. Sattvam, the mode of goodness. Paramam, supreme. Pavitram, purified. Shama, control of the mind. Dhamma, control of the senses. Satyam, truthfulness. Anugraha, mercy. Cha, and. Tapa, austerity. Titiksha, tolerance. Anubhava, realization of God and the living entity. Cha, and. Yatra, wherein. Translation. The Vedas are my eternal transcendental sound incarnation. Therefore, the Vedas are Shabda Brahma. In this world, the Brahmins thoroughly study all the Vedas, and because they assimilate the Vedic conclusions, they are also to be considered the Vedas personified. The Brahmins are situated in the supreme transcendental mode of nature, Sattva Gun. Because of this, they are fixed in mind control, Sama, sense control, Dhamma, and truthfulness, Satya. They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and out of mercy, Anugraha, they preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, and tolerance, titiksha, and they realize the position of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, Anubhav. These are the 8 qualifications of the Brahmins. Therefore, among all living entities, no one is superior to the Brahmins. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This is a true description of a Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who has assimilated the Vedic conclusions by practicing mind and sense control. He speaks the true version of all the Vedas. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa Save Ahameva Vedya. By studying all the Vedas, one should come to understand the transcendental position of Lord Sri Krishna. One who actually assimilated the essence of the Vedas can preach the truth. He is compassionate to conditioned souls who are suffering the threefold miseries of this conditional world due to their not being Krishna conscious. A Brahman should take pity on the people and preach Krishna consciousness in order to elevate them. Sri Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, personally descends into this universe from the spiritual kingdom to teach conditioned souls about the values of spiritual life. He tries to induce them to surrender unto him. Similarly, the Brahmins do the same thing. After assimilating the Vedic instructions, they assist the Supreme Lord in his endeavor to deliver conditioned souls. The Brahmins are very dear to the Supreme Lord due to their high sattva gun qualities, and they also engage in welfare activities for all conditioned souls in the material world. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapatantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vatamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parajana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Ladita Sri Vishakam Vatamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaman Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Sunyavadi Pasticha Desha Tarane Ancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the Vedas are my eternal transcendental sound incarnation. Therefore the Vedas are Shabda Brahma. In this world, the Brahmins thoroughly study all the Vedas, and because they assimilate the Vedic conclusions, they are also to be considered the Vedas personified. The Brahmins are situated in the supreme transcendental mode of nature, Sattva Gun. Because of this, they are fixed in mind control, shama, sense control, dhamma, and truthfulness, satya. They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and out of mercy, anugraha, they preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, and tolerance, titiksha, and they realize the position of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, Anubhav. These are the 8 qualifications of the Brahmins. Therefore, among all living entities, no one is superior to the Brahmins. In the beginning of the purport, it brings to mind Lord Brahma. Prabhupada says this is a true description of a Brahman. A Brahman is one who has assimilated the Vedic conclusions by practicing mind and sense control. He speaks the true version of all the Vedas. So in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a description of the birth of Lord Brahma, and then the experience that he went through in coming to realize the purport of all the Vedas. Now, of course, this is also described in the Brahma Samhita. And Lord Brahma, he's the head of our Sampradaya, the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya. And it's described that he appeared on the lotus flower that emerged from the navel of Mahavishnu. And he all around, he couldn't see anything all around him. He didn't know where he was, who he was, what his purpose was. And he tried climbing down the stem of the lotus, but he could never find the end of the stem. And then he went up again. And then he heard these 2 syllables, tapa, meaning tapasya. So from this vibration, he understood that he should perform tapasya. So he performed tapasya, austerity, for a very, 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 very long time. And then through that austerity, Krishna revealed the Vedas to Lord Brahma. And then it's described in the second canto that Lord Brahma, he studied the Vedas 3 times. And then after studying them 3 times, then he came to the proper conclusion of the Vedas, which is Vedas Chasava Hameva Vedya, that Krishna is he's the origin of the Vedas and he's the purpose of the Vedas. So the goal of the Vedas is to know Krishna. The goal of the Vedas is bhakti, to engage in loving devotional service to Krishna. And then when later on, when Srila Vyasadeva, when he presented the Vedas and he wrote down the Vedas in a way which was accessible for the people of Kali Yuga. So he divided them into the different divisions, different divisions of Vedic knowledge. And then he also wrote the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata and the Vedanta Sutra. And the Vedanta Sutra is supposed to be like the conclusion of the Vedas. But he was still dissatisfied. And so he was contemplating, why am I feeling dissatisfied after presenting all this knowledge? And then Narada Muni appears, his spiritual master, and he explains to Srila Vyasadeva that it's because you haven't clearly explained the purpose of the Vedas. So for someone with the intelligence of Lord Brahma, he can read the Vedas and he can come to the right conclusion that Krishna is the goal of the Vedas. But for the living entities in Kali Yuga, we don't have that type of intelligence. So we can't read the Vedas and we can't come to the same conclusion that Lord Brahma came to. We need extra pieces of information to sort of fill in all the, not fill in the blanks, but to sort of reveal the purpose and the essence of the Vedas. So for this reason, Srila Vyasadeva gave the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is Vyasadeva's own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So the Vedanta Sutra is the conclusion, the essence of the Vedas, and the Bhagavatam is the conclusion, the essence, the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be the cream of all Vedic knowledge. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes it as Amala Purana, spotless Purana, that it's the topmost Shastra, the topmost literature that reveals the topmost knowledge very, very clearly. Srimad Bhagavatam reveals this knowledge very clearly. So just like Lord Brahma is the head of our Sampradaya, he's giving the example that we should perform austerity and we should carefully study this knowledge. Ideally, we should try, if possible, to follow his example and try and study it at least 3 times. And then we understand that the goal of the Vedas is Krishna. Krishna is the conclusion of the Vedas, the goal of the Vedas, and this is the goal of bhakti. It's the goal of Krishna consciousness. It's the goal of yoga. Just like you have the yoga ladder, and then the conclusion of the yoga ladder is bhakti. The conclusion of the Vedas is bhakti. So the conclusion of all knowledge is bhakti, Bhakti Vedanta, Srila Prabhupada's own name, Bhakti Vedanta. The final conclusion of all the Vedas is bhakti, devotion to Krishna. So this is the conclusion, this is the goal. So in pursuing, in trying to reach our goals, this is one of the, it's actually a principle of teaching, that in teaching you have goals, aims, and objectives. So the goal is the ultimate end to what we want to achieve. And then in the course of trying to achieve that ultimate goal, we have aims and objectives. So the objectives are the different sub goals that we have to achieve in trying to come to the ultimate goal. And then the aims, these are like the sub objectives. These are like the different things that we have to achieve in coming to the objectives. So in the same way, in approaching the ultimate goal of Krishna, and in trying to reach the ultimate goal of Krishna's lotus feet, and actually Lord Chaitanya clarifies that even further. He sets the goal as being Krishna's lotus feet in Vrindavan. So he sets the mood of Vraj Bhakti as being the ultimate goal of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in coming to that ultimate goal, we have several objectives that we want to achieve along the way. And by achieving those objectives, this will help us achieve the ultimate goal. And this makes it a little easier, because sometimes we see the ultimate goal and we see the example of people who have achieved that ultimate goal. We look at the example of personalities like Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas and our contemporary acharyas. We look at all these great, amazing examples, and sometimes it just seems so far away. You know, we see the ultimate goal, we see the ultimate conclusion, and it just feels like, well, how am I ever going to attain that goal? How am I ever going to come to that end? And so we can set ourselves objectives to achieve along the way to reaching that goal. So Srila Prabhupada, he expressed a desire that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, that one of the objectives that we can try and achieve in coming to this ultimate goal is to develop these Brahminical qualities, actually coming to this stage of being a Brahmana. In quality, not just in name, not just in having a 20 pence piece of string around our neck, but actually having the qualities of a Brahmin. So this is an objective, because if we can achieve that objective, then those qualities, that will help us to attain the ultimate goal. You know, if we actually have these qualities, then we will become more qualified to perform the activities which will allow us to achieve the ultimate goal. So, for instance, by having these qualities, it will make it, we will become more qualified to read and study and to understand the literatures given by our acharyas, by the Goswamis. We will become more qualified to chant the holy names, to control our mind and senses, and so this is like an objective. And then in coming to that objective, we have these different aims. So here in this purport, and also in 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as well, and other places also, then it describes that these are the qualities of a Brahmin. And then we can try and develop those qualities little by little by little. It may be that, we can't necessarily claim to be Brahmins. But Srila Prabhupada says an interesting thing in it's elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is exposing my own lack of Brahminical qualification. I can't remember where it is in the Bhagavatam. But there's a purport in the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says that receiving Brahminical initiation doesn't make one a Brahmin, but it qualifies one to become a Brahmin. So by receiving that initiation, we then become qualified that now we can become a Brahmin. It doesn't mean we are one, but it means now we can become one. So, and how do we become one? By actually striving and endeavoring to develop these qualities. And so we can look at each one of these qualities and, actually practice these qualities in our life, and also the qualities Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter. Just a second. Oops, we've lost it. 42 of the 18th chapter. So it says peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmins work. And then in this verse also, we're learning fixed in mind control, sense control, truthfulness. They describe the Vedas in their original sense. So this is like, there are so many people who are describing the Vedas or claiming to describe the Vedas, but they come to so many conclusions which are not the proper conclusion of the Vedas. So here in the verse, it says they describe the Vedas in their original sense. And then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says he speaks the true version of all the Vedas. So he gives the proper conclusion of the Vedas, that Krishna is the conclusion of the Vedas, just like Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada gives Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I've heard Shivaram Swami many times. He makes this point. He says that by calling his Bhagavad Gita as it is, what he's saying in a roundabout way is that other versions of Bhagavad Gita are Bhagavad Gita as they are not. So, and this has created a lot of disturbance actually for many people who are scholars of the Bhagavad Gita, that they consider it to be quite a kind of strong statement that this version of the Bhagavad Gita, this is the only version of the Bhagavad Gita. But in the same way, the Vedas, you could, in a sense, you could call the Srimad Bhagavatam the Vedas as they are, because here we're actually learning this is the real version of the Vedas. This is the, what is it that the verse says? They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and Prabhupada says they speak the true version of all the Vedas. So, actually, and Prabhupada helps us to do this because he's giving a commentary which is so watertight. His commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita is so watertight that there is no other conclusion other than bhakti. And so by very, very carefully studying and assimilating Srila Prabhupada's books and teachings and speaking that, repeating that knowledge, then in this way we're developing this quality of anugraha, describing the Vedas in their original, satya. And now, anyway, describing the Vedas in their original sense. And then we can go through each one of these qualities, fixed in mind control. So by practicing chanting the holy name, by practicing, this can help us become fixed in mind control. Sense control, following the 4 regulative principles, gradually brings us to the stage of sense control. Truthfulness, describing the Vedas in their original sense. Out of mercy, they preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. So Srila Prabhupada has established, he's institutionalized the preaching mission, that all members of the Krishna consciousness movement, in one of Srila Prabhupada's letters, he actually says it is the duty of all devotees to learn the art of book distribution. So again, it was kind of pointed out that he's not saying it's the duty of all initiated devotees or all members of ISKCON, or, he just says it's the duty of all devotees to learn the art of book distribution. So anyone that is on this path of bhakti, Prabhupada is suggesting that, learning the art of book distribution and sharing transcendental knowledge with others is one of our responsibilities. So they preach the purpose of the Vedas for conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, tolerance, titiksha, rising early in the morning, taking cold baths, chanting our rounds, following the regulative principles. So in this way, we can see that the Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, they're designing our lives in such a way, they're giving all these kind kind of lifestyle suggestions, you could say, but also for those, especially for those who are committed to the path, then it's not just a lifestyle suggestion, but it's that this is the way you should live your life if you're going to follow in the footsteps of these spiritual teachers. And each one of the lifestyle guides that Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas are given, they're helping us to bit by bit actually develop these qualities, actually develop all the qualities, the Brahminical qualities. And then by developing these qualities, these are all aims. And by developing these qualities, gradually we come to the point of achieving the objective of actually coming to the Brahminical platform. And then this is one of the number of objectives that we can achieve on the path of bhakti to help us achieve the ultimate goal of bhakti, which is to attain to Krishna. So, we know what the goal is, and say we could say the same thing about, like for instance, chanting the holy name. The goal is to chant the holy name in pure love for Krishna. How are we going to do that? By achieving these different objectives of chanting the holy name without offense. How are we going to do that? By achieving the different aims of analyzing our life and saying, well, where are the areas in my life that offenses are creeping in? Am I maintaining material attachments? Am I disobeying the orders of my guru? Am I being disrespectful to the Vaishnavas? We can look at all the areas of our life where there may be shortcomings, which is where offenses are kind of creeping in. And by trying to iron out those shortcomings, then this helps us to achieve the aim of becoming more offenseless in our behavior, which ultimately helps us to achieve the objective of actually being able to chant properly, which again, chanting properly, Brahminical character, and then so many other areas of our life. By achieving all these different objectives, then we ultimately achieve the ultimate goal, which is pure love for Krishna and Vraj Bhakti. Similarly, and there's a lot of overlapping as well. It's like circles that kind of interact. Like we could say that one of our goals, one of our objectives is again connected to this, to actually become fluent and accomplished in our study of the Bhakti Shastras, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita. Becoming accomplished in these is one of the objectives that we want to achieve to help us attain the ultimate goal. How are we going to do that? By achieving different aims, such as making a commitment that we want to read Srila Prabhupada's books so many times, that we maybe want to achieve, say, different certificates like Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, these kind of things. And then, studying these books under guidance from teachers. So in this way, this helps us to achieve these objectives. So there are many, many objectives that we want to attain to achieve our ultimate goal. And this objective, which is being described here, actually coming to the Brahminical platform, this will really, really, the more we can achieve this, because it's going to be especially difficult for those of us who don't necessarily come from a Brahminical birth. We don't have the samskaras, not only the samskaras of birth, but also the samskaras that we developed during our youth before taking to Krishna consciousness. The lifestyle that we may have led before taking to Krishna consciousness may still be proving a handicap to us many, many years later. We may still feel to some degree the weight of those quite negative samskaras. So whether we'll achieve full Brahminical status in this life or not, maybe not. But the point is that the more we can introduce these qualities into our life, the more favorable our consciousness will become for being able to chant the holy name, read the Shastras, perform devotional service, associate with devotees, and so on and so forth. So, Srila Prabhupada is giving so many practical instructions in his purports. He's making it very, very practical. We just have to kind of stop and think, well, what are the aims, what are the objectives that Srila Prabhupada is describing that will help me to actually attain this ultimate goal? And then how can I apply those things practically to my life? How can I actually incorporate these different elements into my life? And then in this way, we can achieve the ultimate goal of life, which is to return back to Krishna's lotus feet in Vrindavan. And even the endeavor, there's Srila Prabhupada said in one lecture, he was really emphasizing very, very strongly in one lecture that we just have to give 100% of our life to Krishna. We have to become 100% surrendered to Krishna. We just have to completely dedicate our life 100% to Krishna. And he was really emphasizing it. And when he finished the class, he stood up and he looked around, and the devotees looked really negative because some of the what was that? Hare Krishna. Some of the objectives, you could say, that Srila Prabhupada had established in that class really felt very high for a lot of the devotees. They were thinking, how am I ever going to get up to this point? So Prabhupada looked out and he could see that the devotees didn't look very encouraged. So then, and his Vyasa-san was up, it was on a raised platform, and there were a few steps coming down to the floor where the devotees were sitting. So then he took one step down and he said, 90%. Just become 90% Krishna conscious in this life, and Krishna will take you back. And he looked around, and the devotees kind of looked sort of cautiously optimistic. And then he took another step and he said, 80%. just give 80% of your life to Krishna, and then Krishna will make up the rest. And I think it was Dinabandhu Prabhu that was telling the story, but I can't remember if Prabhupada finished at 70 or 60. But anyway, he gave some concession, that, okay, just do the best that you can. Do the best that you can. Do what, with all of our handicaps, with all of our shortcomings, do the best that you possibly can for Krishna. And then Krishna says in the Gita, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So Krishna will carry what we lack. And we may be lacking a lot, but for Krishna, that's nothing. It's very, very easy for Krishna to kind of make up those shortcomings. But we have to do the best that we can. We have to make the best endeavor that we can. And then Srila Prabhupada explains that, even if due to our shortcomings, due to our lack of qualification, even if we're not able to remember Krishna at the time of death, which is, the ultimate goal of our practice of bhakti, is to remember Krishna and to go back to Krishna. But if we give our life to Krishna and we make a very serious, sincere effort and endeavor to give our life to Krishna, then Srila Prabhupada says, even if you can't remember Krishna, he'll remember you. Krishna will remember you at the time of death, and then he'll take you back. So we can be very encouraged by these things, because sometimes, the goal, not only the goal seems very high, but sometimes the objectives seem very high and the aims seem very high. It just seems like I can't do anything. So, but we just do the best that we possibly can. And we can see the examples, like, for instance, in Lord Chaitanya's Leela, we see the example of when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on pilgrimage and he visited this one temple, and there was a devotee in the temple, and the devotee was illiterate. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, but his guru had asked him, every day you read the Bhagavad Gita. So he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, but he couldn't read, he couldn't pronounce anything properly. And so the other people in the temple, they were laughing and giggling at him because, he was, they were all very accomplished, very erudite scholars and pandits. And there was this one person who was struggling to even pronounce a few syllables. So they were laughing and kind of mocking him a little bit. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw him and he said, what is it you're doing and why are you doing it? And he said, well, my guru has asked me every day I should read the Bhagavad Gita. I should recite the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm not able to, but I have to follow his instruction. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, but I can see from your qualities that you're experiencing great spiritual ecstasy and realization. How is that possible? And he said, well, whenever I try to read the Bhagavad Gita, even though I don't understand the words, this picture comes into my mind that Krishna is taking the role of charioteer and he's becoming the devotee of his devotee. And seeing Krishna's kindness and mercy in this way, it's making me so emotional, and tears are coming to my eyes. And Lord Chaitanya embraced and said, you have really truly understood the purport of the Bhagavad Gita. So we may be lacking in certain qualities, certain material qualities, even certain spiritual qualities. But if we just do the best we can and make the best effort that we can to serve our spiritual master, to serve Srila Prabhupada, to serve the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and to do the best that we can to develop these qualities, although it may not be natural for us, like Hari Sori Prabhu, who was Srila Prabhupada's personal assistant for about a year and a half. Prabhupada would regularly pick him up on certain aspects of cleanliness, the way that he would eat, the way that he would bathe, the way that he would wash his hands, the way that he would sort of clean up after Srila Prabhupada's eating and things like this. Many, many, many details were there, and he would slip up on certain details, and Prabhupada would kind of correct him, and then Hari Sori would say, "I'm so sorry, Srila Prabhupada, it's just not natural for me." And Prabhupada said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, for you people who have kind of grown up in this background, it's not natural, but just do the best that you can. Just do the best you can. So it's not natural for us necessarily to live like Brahmins and so on, but do the best that we can. As far as our intelligence is able, let's try to learn the standards. Let's try to learn cleanliness and austerity and sense control and mind control, and do the best that we can. And then Krishna, he will carry what we lack. He will preserve what we have. So, and then ultimately we can still achieve the ultimate goal, because Srila Prabhupada says, "I'll get you in through the back door." So we'll stop there. If any questions, comments, or anything at all, Dr. Krishna Prabhu.
Just wondering, Vaisheshika Prabhu says, always better service, ABS. So in that sense, you could be feeling discouraged, that I could have done better. And then the other alternative is that because we think we're doing the best we can, and there's a complacency there that nobody can really tell me to do any better than I am doing, because I'm, get up my case, I'm doing the best that I can, okay? And that's it. So it's like there's two extremes. One is you could be discouraged because you feel you should be doing so much better than you are, or you can become complacent that you feel you're doing the best that you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of humility is a principle of spiritual life, and there's never going to be a time when we're doing the best we can. There's always going to be ways that our guru and devotees can point out, and this will help us to be humble, that no matter what I do, it's never going to be perfect, but let's do the best that I know how to do, and let's also be open and willing to hear ways in which we can improve, and also look for ways that we can improve. And this is also why, regularly studying, regularly hearing from devotees, we'll always find ways that we can improve, always. And we should always aspire for that. There's never going to be a time that we're going to be perfect. And when we go back to Godhead, there's still never going to be a time that we're going to become perfect, because that's the nature of the spiritual world. It's ever increasing, it's ever expanding. The ways that the devotees are finding to do service, improve their service, that's going on eternally in the spiritual world. So what hope do we have? So we do the best that we know how to do, while simultaneously looking for ways and being open to hear ways that we can improve. And also having a prayerful mood that I'm sorry, it's like, show me what you want. Krishna, just try to point out to me what it is that I need to do, because I know I'm hopeless, but I'm just, it's like I remember one devotee was saying that when they used to go on the altar right at Bhaktivedanta Manor to offer arati to Radha Gokulananda, the first thing they would say in their mind when they walked onto the altar was, "Sorry, it's me again." It's like, sorry, it's like, I know I'm hopeless, but somehow you keep engaging me in this service. So just, I'll do what I know how to do, but try and give me some pointers and some directions how to improve.
That may also come directly from Krishna, that includes devotees. Like sometimes on Sankirtan, people can come up to you and give you, like happened with Shiv Ramraj, the policeman came up to him and says, why don't you be a bit more enthusiastic when you talk to Lord Krishna? Yeah. Telling me, so that feedback can come.
Yeah. Prabhupada as well. Srila Prabhupada was doing Back to Godhead magazine, and he went into one library and sold a copy, and the person said, no, you shouldn't be doing magazines, you should be printing books, because magazines, people read them once and throw them away, but you take a book and you keep it, So Prabhupada said, oh, this is my spiritual master speaking to me. And it was a librarian. It was like maybe a devotee of sorts, but that was the way Prabhupada described it. So yeah, we have to, and the more it's like, this is why our chanting is so important, and the quality of our chanting is so important, because it's like, it's an old-fashioned example, but I think most of us here are old enough to remember it. Like old transistor radios, when you would have like a dial that you would turn to try and tune into the radio station, and you get all this, frequency noises and static noises, and then you keep tuning, and then after a while, through all the hissing and the static, you start to hear someone's voice, you hear something there, so you're just tuning more and more and more, and then eventually the voice comes through. So it's the same with our chanting. When we're chanting, we don't hear the holy name, because all we can hear is the mind and the senses and the hissing and the static and the disturbance, and we hear all these different things. But if we really try and carefully tune into the holy name and listen carefully, then when that forms the foundation of our day, then when we go out into our day, we start hearing Krishna. The more tuned in we are to our japa, the more we hear Krishna speaking to us.
That was the second. Sorry, just the mental, because you were mentioning how the Brahman's got full control over his mind. So if the Brahman does have full control over his mind, because we live in an age now when there's a lot of mental health conditions. So is it really just the fact that because people have got such poor control over their minds, because they're not tuning in properly, they're not hearing properly. And in a simplistic way, you could say that all mental health is really just a lack of mind control.
Yeah, but also the world is designed. It's like I was speaking with, this has come up quite a few times in a few conversations I've had lately. We've been conditioned, especially in the last 10, 15 years or so, we've been very heavily conditioned to become more and more inattentive and distracted, because the way that digital media and social media works is that it kind of, you just jump from, it's like you're scrolling. It's very high, it's one of the reasons why Instagram has become more popular than Facebook, is because it's photos, rather than actually reading something. It's like, and then Twitter, it's like, okay, you can have 180 characters, that's your limit. So people's brains are being trained to not be able to just concentrate on one thing for a long period of time. The way that TV, media, social media, all these things, the way that it works is that it's training our minds to become more and more distracted. So it's going to be a real uphill fight for many of us to get back to this point where we can just, we were speaking the other day when I was speaking to you, and it's like, I'm just now, after 25 years, able to sit down and chant my japa. It's taken 25 years to be able to just sit down in one place and chant. It's a real uphill struggle to kind of to overcome that distraction and so on. But that's why establishing the goal is so important. Because if the goal is like, okay, the goal may be a long way off, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to reach that goal, so that when it does become difficult, when it does become a challenge, we keep going. We don't want to kind of give up so easily.
Question online. As someone suffering from mental illness, cleanliness is difficult. Is this a past life issue, or will it have leniency?
Well, everything has leniency, because that's the nature of Kali Yuga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's his nature, is that he's so lenient. I understand that. About 4 years ago, I had a complete breakdown, and everything fell apart. And it was the first time in my life that mental health became not just something that I heard about, but something that I actually started to get actual practical first-hand experience of. And everything falls apart. Cleanliness and austerity, everything just completely collapses, because it's just so hard. At least my experience was that it was so hard to just kind of keep a grip on just the basic day-to-day things. Is it a past life thing? Well, everything ultimately is some manifestation of karma. whether it's from this life or a past life. But, we try not to become so despondent with our condition. We may be in a situation in life where some of these details are hard to, assimilate or hard to put together in our life. But Harinam, Harinam, Harinam Eva Kevalam, Kala Nasteva, 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 Katira Nitara. In Kali Yuga, chanting of Krishna's names, that is the main activity. And if we can at least dedicate to that one activity, if we can make that part of our daily activity, then gradually, all of the things, they're going to sort of come into place. And anything which doesn't come into place, again, Krishna will carry what we lack and preserve what we have. So we do the best that we can. And bhakti is an incredibly individual process. It's such an individual process. We have basic principles and details that we present in classes like this and that we read about in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's a very, very individual process. Our relationship with Krishna is completely unique and completely individual. And our effort and endeavor to become Krishna conscious is completely unique and completely individual. One example, maybe a slightly different example, but like, for instance, one of, like we mentioned before, like sharing Krishna consciousness, that's one of the that's one of the practices that's recommended if we're able to somehow share Krishna consciousness with others. And some people very naturally are able to approach other people and talk to them and offer them books and these kind of things. And so they're able to distribute hundreds and thousands of books. They may, maybe they'll come back at the end of the day and everyone will cheer and so on. And then someone else may really struggle, may have a real problem with approaching other people and talking to other people and, having the confidence or having the sort of presence of mind to know what to say and how to answer different questions. So someone may distribute hundreds and hundreds of books and someone else may distribute one book. Does it mean that one person has got Krishna's mercy more than another? For someone getting out of bed in the morning or these kind of things, it may be a huge, massive effort, but they do it because they know that Krishna wants us to do this. Someone else, it may be very, very easy. But Krishna sees the effort that we make, he sees the endeavor that we're making. So it may be really difficult. We may feel that there are areas of our life that are lacking, but if we just make that, whatever effort we're able to make, and chant as much as we're able to and hear as much as we're able to, then the thing that Krishna's seeing is the effort, the endeavor that we're doing. And he's also seeing how difficult it is for us as individuals. And he's seeing that despite that difficulty, we're still trying day after day after day. And then we'll get his mercy. I hope that's okay. Okay, we should stop. Okay. Thank you. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.